You're listening to the Josh Parnell Leadership Podcast. We all have leadership within us, and once we understand how to challenge perceived limitations, we're able to influence those we're leading. Josh is a leadership coach, trainer, and speaker. He's also a veteran of the United States Air Force with over 20 years of leadership experience. Are you ready to transform your leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results? Let's get ready for liftoff. It's time to go from great to greater. Here's Josh in today's episode.
Welcome to the Josh Parnell Leadership Podcast. Whether it's inspirational guests like the one we have today or jam-packed episodes regarding all things leadership, the goal here is quite simple: to reach people and build leaders. And we know that you're here listening because that's exactly what you want to do. You want to raise your leadership lid to live today, to make an impact for tomorrow. So thank you for being here. And let's get into today's episode. Today's episode, I would say, is without question the most interesting title that we've had, and arguably my favorite, because today's episode is titled Turning Poop into Gold. Yes, folks, turning poop into gold. And you'll know exactly why, because our guest today is the one, the only, EJ McCoy. EJ, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Josh. It's a pleasure.
Well, I'm glad you're here, man. EJ is the CEO and founder of White Picket Team, Scoop Soldiers, and Chorby. He's also a husband, a father. He is an incredible entrepreneur that I cannot wait to share his story and talk all things leadership, talk all things entrepreneurship, talk all things grit and resilience, because you know every entrepreneur has to have both those things. So EJ, if you would, man, introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, where you came from, where you're going, all the details about EJ McCoy.
Yes, no, thanks, Josh. Thanks for the introduction. So yes, as you mentioned, little ADD. I've got three brands that I am the co-founder and CEO of, at least right now, not forever. I won't be the CEO of those brands forever because I very much so, you mentioned leadership. I very much so believe in raising up leaders. My goal is someday to have CEOs that work with me as a co-founder. And so, yes, those three brands. Started out mowing yards, 21 years old, actually even before that, high school, but I incorporated at 21 years old, just mowing yards. Decided by the time I was 21, I'm just going to put my head down and I'm going to mow yards until the Lord directs me in another way. And he never really directed me in another way. To this day, we mow over 6,000 lawns a week between two different brands. One that I'm the co-founder and CEO of, Chorby. The other one, just a brand that I'm a shareholder in. And then we started scooping poop about 5 years later. I was 26 years old. I had moved. I'd bought my first house here in North Dallas, McKinney, Texas, pretty much where I grew up. And I had seen a competing poop scooping business. I'd seen their trucks. I had heard of this type of industry a few years prior. My dad is a retired fireman today. He had a buddy that was a fireman that came over one day and was starting a poop business. This is in like 2001. And so I'd been introduced to the concept a few years earlier, but I had moved to McKinney, Texas, bought my first house, saw it competing, kept seeing these trucks thinking, man, I can do that. And so I partnered up with my partner. I partnered up with who is today my co-founder, Josh Cahill. And in 2011, we started Scoop Soldiers. And in 2019, we franchised Scoop Soldiers. After growing it to 12 to 15 markets, from 2011 to 2019 corporately, we decided with about 80 trucks on the road that we needed to franchise to really expand that further. It was growing very difficult to expand this business with all the trucks and all the resources we needed. And so that was where franchising came in for us and with Scoop Soldiers. And in 2019, likewise, I started White Picket Team. And we started that business initially to be an internally focused business to consolidate all of our human resources, all of our management, basically all of our management infrastructure. So I wanted to build an organization, a leadership team that could help us lead all of our businesses. And that was 5 years ago now. And so in 2014 and 2024, just in the last few months, we really started pointing White Picket Team at the industries that we serve as a whole. And so we now provide bookkeeping services to home service businesses and pet-oriented businesses. We offer leadership consulting, leadership development, really anything that the industry needs. That business can very much so do. Even to this day, White Picket Team basically manages approximately $27 million in revenues for my internal businesses. And so that's a quick recap, quick overview of all three of these businesses and a little bit how they work. Not exactly together. White Picket works with both companies, but Chorby and Scoop Soldiers are two very specific businesses with specific missions. They have the same leadership team, but they really have, in the day-to-day, they have leaders and people working those businesses independently.
EJ, you mentioned White Picket Team. For those listening, you might hear White Picket Team and say, wait, I think I've heard of White Picket Team before, and you have on this podcast because Ben Gonzalez recently was on an episode sharing what he does, and White Picket Team is a huge part of what he does. And so there is the similarity there. There's the puzzle pieces connecting all of a sudden. EJ, man, so you've been an entrepreneur your entire life.
I don't know anything any different. In fact, I've never had a job, what I call it W-2 employment, for longer than 7 months. I was never very good. I've had probably 15 of them, but there were 15 of them from the time I was 18 to the time I was 21. I haven't had a job since.
So as my kids would say, EJ, you're built different. So clearly you're built for entrepreneurship. Let me ask you, what has been the draw for you towards entrepreneurship?
Well, early on, I didn't want to get out of bed. And I'm being facetious, but I'm also being serious. I was 21 years old. I'm looking at life. I'm looking at what am I going to do with my life? I need to be productive. I was very ambitious, still am very ambitious, but I wasn't. The idea of getting up every day and having a 9 to 5 from the time I was probably 13 years old, that sounded absolutely miserable. My parents were, my dad was a fireman, as I mentioned. My stepmom worked in a corporate job. I didn't want that. I almost went to the fire department because I liked the idea of only working 9 days a month, but it was very obvious pretty quickly that that wasn't something I was going to be very successful at either. And so for me as an entrepreneur, you hear Gary Vee talk a little bit about this. There was a little bit of a lazy factor. Like, my whole goal was honestly to figure out, how do I not have to work? Like, I want money. I need money to live, but I knew that I wasn't probably going to be successful in the traditional sense of doing that. And so that's why I said a second ago, I put my head down at about 21 years old after kind of failing a lot in these other roles. I tried multiple different W-2 positions. I never was successful in them. And so I put my head down and I said, you know what, Lord, I'm gonna mow yards until opportunity comes. And opportunity came, but it did not come the way I expected. It came in the form of additional businesses. But yeah, my motivation early on was that I just was not going to probably be that disciplined person who could get up and do Monday through Friday, come to work 8 a.m., leave at 5 p.m. I knew that was not a discipline I was ever going to be happy.
The irony of the fact that you self-admittedly said, for lack of, you didn't say lazy, but it's kind of like, hey, I didn't want to work, right? And the irony is, like, the opportunity came in the form of more work. But the thing I love about what you and I both do, in the sense of, from the entrepreneurship mindset, we're always working, but we're not really working. Meaning, what you do, I know you love what you do. You're passionate about what you do, and you can hear it in your voice. You can see it on your face. Every time I talk to you, every time I see an interview with you or something that you're doing, you're truly and genuinely passionate about what you're doing, and it's because it goes beyond you. It goes beyond the paycheck that you're getting. It really is about the impact that you guys are making, and I love the kind of work that you do to make the impact that you do. Can you share what kind of impact you're making and how you're making it?
Well, we could start on multiple fronts. So I'll start with White Picket because we talked about that a second ago, but I'll spend the least amount of time on that, even though it's probably it's the newest thing, so it's freshest. But White Picket team, that's where I believe we're going to make a huge difference in the industries that we serve. Again, White Picket's managing everything I do, which will be just under $30 million in total global revenues for everything this year. That's where I believe that the things White Picket does for me are the things that almost every entrepreneur I've ever spoken to in the home services space, whether it's garage doors, whether it's general contracting, whether it's lawn mowing or pest control or pools or whatever. White Picket serves me in a way that it can serve that it could serve those same individuals. And every entrepreneur I've ever talked to in these spaces struggles in similar ways, delegating those HR, the things that are hard to scale, HR, the real back-end business management, insurance. All of these things are things that tend to bury an entrepreneur. I've been set free in a lot of ways because I have this team at White Picket, this incredible team, and Jeremy Langlitz and Crystal Morris, really the key leadership there. Ben Gonzalez, who you mentioned earlier, was on a podcast recently. These leaders, they're going to make a huge difference in the industry as a whole, because I know it, because they've done it for me. And so that's White Picket, and that's a little bit about how White Picket. So bookkeeping, leadership consulting. We even took a client recently. We're going to help them recruit their first controller, their first CFO.
Okay.
And so right now we're still finding our space and our service, our true service offers. But right now, for that reason, we're kind of open. Like, how can we help the industry? And then there's Chorby, and Chorby. The roots of Chorby, the clients, like literally the first 100 clients and oldest 100 clients that Chorby has to this day, are the clients that I mowed yards for when I was 21 years old and even younger. In some cases, in fact, my original client when I was 9 years old, is 9 years old, is still a client. She's like a grandmother to me by now and to my kids, but she's still a client. We still mow her yard, and she's the one that got me mowing yards when I was 9, 10 years old. But Chorby is really that original business, the business that I put my head down and just started mowing yards when I was 21 years old. That became Chorby. Well, it didn't start off as Chorby. I did not wake up when I was 21 years old and have this vision for Chorby. That didn't come until I was, 35 years old, and I'm 39 today, so just in the last 5 years. But the vision for Chorby is to truly disrupt home services. If you're a homeowner, you live in a home, or you pay for services, anybody who pays for a convenience, a service to come to their home, whether it's their HVAC technician or their pool service or their lawn mowing service or their pest control service, if you're paying for that service, you know how inconvenient and somewhat archaic these industries are in a lot of ways. That technology has not disrupted these industries yet. Not in they have. I mean, we all use apps now for our scheduling. We all, we do these different things in these home service industries. But think about how Amazon revolutionized, and Amazon Prime specifically revolutionized the convenience of just buying and shopping for yourself, and how you can literally buy. I mean, I just bought this remote because my dogs chewed up the other one. My 2 Great Danes chewed up the other one. It came to me in 24 hours delivered, and it was like $13. The way Amazon did that, if you think about home services, that has not happened yet. It's not that convenient. You have to have 15 different companies in your Rolodex, in your call list, in your phone, just to keep your house managed. It's almost easier to do it yourself in some ways. Chorby's long-term vision is to develop, and by the way, we haven't even begun. All we basically have is a roadmap for this technology. But someday, I envision Chorby being an application on, I don't know, 50, I'm being ambitious here, but 50% of all homeowners in the country. Sure. Imagine they've got their Chorby app, and when they have a need, whether it's their pool acting up, or whether it's their weekly pool maintenance, or whether it's their lawn mowing and their robotic lawnmower, or whether it's their HVAC or their plumbing systems, their hot water heaters and that sort of thing. Imagine just going to a single app, communicating with a single command center, a single office that has specific skilled trades. I should say, I'm doing a terrible job at articulating this. You'd think I'd be better at it, but have their individual skilled trades, but it's all operated through Chorby. And when somebody shows up to your house, it's not just some subcontractor. In most cases, it's an actual local business owner that owns a local Chorby pest control franchise when it comes to pest control, or the local pool service is the Chorby pool franchisee. So imagine a single point of contact, but you can get all of these skilled trades done, everything from plumbing to lawn mowing, all through an app, all communicated. And then as home automation, I believe that revolution is still yet to come. I think it's 7 to 12 years out still. As home automation and as smart home technology comes on, Imagine that application actually through Open API tying into all of your different functions of your house, everything from your robotic lawnmower to your pool equipment to your HVAC system. And so that's the real long-term play of Chorby, is to truly disrupt and to make it really, really convenient for homeowners to really have just one place to go to for everything that they could possibly need, even all the way up to, your bathroom remodel. Now that might be used, we might use subcontractors for those sorts of things, but we would have a local franchisee. That's the other piece to the Chorby vision, is franchise, deliver the service using local small business owners at the local level through the franchise model. So that's the Chorby model.
I love it. And I'll say this, you have a future customer in me. I'll tell you right now, I love what you're doing. I love the vision that you just shared. You're truly giving people what everyone really wants, and that is the gift of time. About how Amazon got you that remote in less than 24 hours. And, 30 years ago, if you want a remote, you got to get in the car and drive over to Best Mall or Radio Shack or, and
exactly. And by the way, Walmart still exists, Best Buy still exists, even small mom and pop retail still exists. And so it's not like we're just going to eliminate all of that. No. There will always be local shops, local plumbers, and local pest control techs, but we're going to do it in a different way over time. And now I say all that because right now, today, what is Chorby? Today's Chorby is a $7 million business that offers plumbing, pest control, pool care, and then all things lawn and landscaping, tree trimming, irrigation, fertilization, weed control, and lawn mowing. That's what Chorby is today. This technology aspect is frankly still a figment of my imagination. It's going to cost millions upon millions of dollars, frankly, millions upon millions of dollars that I haven't quite figured out how to fund yet, but we are really close. Like, we are a matter of months away from really actually starting the process of building that technology, at least the back end side of it. And so I'll segue over. The way I was able to actually get to that is through Scoop Soldiers, turning poop into gold. And that's really the thing I spend my days on, is the turning poop into gold, our T-Pig takeover tour. And so Scoop Soldiers today is about 100 territories of franchise territories. We're almost completely franchised. We have a few corporate locations in Salt Lake City and Seattle and Washington, D.C., and Northwest Arkansas, actually Walmart country. So we've got some corporate locations, but we are nationwide through franchising. We've got 15 franchisees nationwide, a lot here in Dallas-Fort Worth, but we've got a franchisee up in Portland, Oregon, multiple franchisees in the Florida area, franchisees in North Carolina, Atlanta, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Kansas City. So we're all over the country scooping poop. So we're turning poop into gold. We are scooping almost 15,000 jobs a week, scooping poop. And again, all of that service through franchisees. So Scoop Soldiers today, with our franchise network, I mentioned we're doing over 15,000 jobs a week. And our corporate job is to serve those franchisees through our command center. And so we're taking in the calls. We're really helping them manage their business by handling the command center aspects, collecting credit cards, making the sales, basically everything that's the back end customer support, so that our franchisees can focus on delivering the service every single week, 52 weeks out of the year. That's kind of how the pet waste business works. It's almost like a lawn mowing service or a pool service, where we're coming out every week and we're scooping up your dog's waste, sometimes twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. But our real bread and butter is once weekly.
Okay. I love it, man. So turning poop into gold, and you guys are growing fast. I want to go back to Chorby for one second, and it's for selfish reasons. Are you guys in the Houston area?
We are not. So good question. I should have clarified that. Chorby, so think Scoop Soldiers, we grew geographically. I mean, we was starting after about 3 years of being here in Dallas-Fort Worth, 7-8 years ago, we started expanding to Austin, Houston. So we do service your area and basically every major market outside of the Northeast and the Midwest. We service just about every major market nationally. 28 markets, I believe. I can't ever even keep up, to be honest with you, because it depends on how you measure different markets. But we've got 28 or so markets that Scoop Soldiers operate. So it grew geographically, but it offers literally one service. We scoop poop, We offer a few little ancillary services next to that, such as a Wizzy Wash service, which is basically going to kill all disease and that sort of thing in your backyard. So we offer a few ancillary services next to that. Whereas Chorby, we very much so focused on a geographic area being Dallas-Fort Worth. And so if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we service you pretty much. Dallas-Fort Worth, we service. But we do not service outside of Dallas-Fort Worth yet.
Yeah.
I would say we're still 2 to 3 years out, 2 to 3 years from now. And that's part of why we're building our Pet Waste Millionaire brand is 2 to 3, 4 years from now, we're going to be looking for franchisees at Chorby. And we'll be needing to scale that very quickly. We will need 1 to 4 passionate, skilled tradespeople in just about every skilled trade that you can imagine in every market in the country. And that'll be part of the strategy to grow Chorby once we build this technology. So that's still a couple of years out.
Love it, man. So, and you mentioned Pet Waste Millionaire. I think that was the first time that you mentioned Pet Waste Millionaire on this episode.
It was.
Talk about Pet Waste Millionaire.
So that's what I spend my days on. So I have got an incredible leadership team. My VP of operations, Cynthia Hernandez, and her team, she handles, and that team is handling the day-to-day operations of Scoop Soldiers and Chorby. You've got Ben Gonzalez and Jeremy Langlitz, I mentioned earlier, who is handling the day-to-day operations of White Picket Team. My day-to-day is really building and establishing this new brand, Pet Waste Millionaire. And the purpose of that is to really go out and to honestly just flap about my opinions first and foremost, but also to really
value them, EJ. That's why you're on the podcast. We value your back.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I know we're very like-minded in our vision, in our view of leadership and our approach. But that's the goal of Pet Waste Millionaire, is to build a brand, to build a following, to make a difference in any way, but really to promote those 3 brands. The way I see it is we need clients, and we need to make a difference, and to bring in clients. To do that, we need to bring in clients over time at the White Picket brand. Those are for individual entrepreneurs who want to build their brand. But then separately, we need a deep bench of potential franchisees. Scoop Soldier still needs to grow into the Northeast and in the Midwest. We are not in the northeastern states north of Washington, D.C. We're not in the Midwest like Indianapolis or Minneapolis or Chicago even. We're not in the Midwest or the Ohio, the bigger cities in Ohio. So we are looking and always looking for qualified and ambitious franchisees that want to partner with us. And so that's kind of the now, but in the future, as I mentioned a second ago, we're going to need franchisees for Chorby. And we're going to need, frankly, thousands of franchisees for Chorby.
Yeah.
I envision Chorby really being an organization that has, because of the number of verticals that it's going to literally need thousands of entrepreneurs, not just me, not just the team we have now. And so the purpose of the Pet Waste Millionaire brand is to go out there and talk about these things, and so that, when the time comes, we're able to open the floodgates, so to speak, and begin to partner with people. And I don't particularly want to do that in the traditional sense of franchising. It's very expensive in the traditional sense. And so we're building this brand to find partners. At the end of the day, we're building this brand, the Pet Waste Millionaire brand, because we want and need partners basically now and for the foreseeable future.
EJ, how does your individual leadership and your team leadership change as you scale your business the way that you're describing?
Well, in a lot of ways, it'll evolve, but it won't change in a tremendous way. We've already got that incredible foundation.
Yes.
I've mentioned some of these different individuals. They're bought in. They're fully bought in. And our team, all the way down to some of our newest technicians, are bought into that vision. And so what I see changing is just scale. Instead of a couple, we may have dozens upon dozens. We'll have a need for that because we'll have thousands of people within our network, within our franchise network, within, clients at White Picket. And so other than scale, which is of course opportunity for all, if you really look at it, we're laying a foundation to be able to just bring in leaders and people that are like-minded and passionate about our vision, our missions. And of course, the more, I should mention one more thing, Josh. Over time, I envision these businesses probably continuing to spread their wings in their own right. So
yeah, 100%.
White Picket right now its two largest clients are Scoop Soldiers and Chorby, and it has a handful of other smaller clients. Over time, I envision that changing. I envision Chorby and Scoop Soldiers being actually a small part of White Picket, and White Picket is really spread its wing. That's a big part of what Ben Gonzalez's focus is on in the day-to-day.
It's so important that as leaders, we are laying a foundation. We're laying that groundwork to set clear expectations, to define the standards in which we operate. And it's very evident to me through our interactions, both with you and Ben together, also with me and Ben individually, and now with you. Man, I'm really impressed by your passion, your drive, I think is the word I'm looking for. But it's very evident that you guys have laid a very solid foundation. So, man, I'm quite confident that in a couple of years, maybe even sooner than that, you're going to be needing a lot of franchisees to help you in what you're doing. EJ, this is a leadership podcast. I am going to ask you just point blank, what does leadership mean to you? Like, if I'm asking you to, hey, define what leadership is to EJ McCoy, what do you say?
Leadership is painting a vision. First off, you ask me this, you could ask me this every day this week, and I'd probably give you a slightly different answer. I will admit to that. Sure. But when I think of leadership, first off, as a leader, I'm still very much so growing in my confidence in that, admittedly, in a lot of ways. Surprisingly, in some ways, but in a lot of ways, I grew up, I was actually recruited into Amway, a multi-level marketing business, when I was 17. And through that, I was introduced to somebody who I very much so respect, never personally met him, but John Maxwell. I know you know who John Maxwell is.
Yep.
And I have read not all of his books, because I have too much ADD to read almost 100 books, at least from one author. But he's written almost 100. But I've read a lot of his books, and I very much so buy in. So when you ask that question, what I think to myself is one of my favorite quotes, John Maxwell quotes, everything rises and falls on leadership. 100%. You look at the world today, the problems in this world are literally a lack and or a vacuum or missing leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. I also believe that everybody is a leader.
Yes.
Everybody is a leader. It does not matter. My 8-year-old daughter is a leader. She's on a soccer team. She's a leader. She's got school to go to. She's a leader. She's got gymnastics. She's a leader. Same thing for my 12-year-old. And I'm not saying they're natural leaders. I'm saying just because they get up every morning and they go about their life, they are a leader, because one way or another, you are influencing people. And I guess that's another way to put it, is what is leadership? It's influence. And that's part of why I'm doing this as well as a Pet Waste Millionaire. I believe that I have a track record that can speak for itself in a lot of ways, that I can now say, look, these are the things that work. These are the things that don't work. Because one way or another, you're going to lead and you're going to influence. And so you wake up, no matter who you are, you wake up every day. How are you going to influence? Are you going to speak life? Are you going to speak positivity? Are you going to speak about the future? Or are you going to speak about the opposite of all those things? You're going to talk about the past all the time. I love the past. I love history. At the same time, the good old days were not that good. The future's better. The future can and should be brighter. But as a leader, you have to speak and preach about that. You got to speak and preach about what's going to make the future better and brighter.
EJ, I love a lot of what you just shared, man. I agree with you that every person is a leader. I agree that leadership is influence. I mean, I think John Maxwell himself said leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less.
He does say.
I ask you about leadership. You mentioned vision, and whether you realize this or not, to me, you talk about vision, and you mentioned how you have a lot of team members who are already bought in, and you can't cast a vision and influence people who are not bought in. So to me, you're already, you are living the leadership that you're describing. You want to cast a vision and you got people who are bought in. My friend, you have cast the vision. Let me ask you to share with our audience who struggles to get buy-in. What are things that you did, or what are things that you do to get buy-in from your team members that you bring on board?
Pray. And I'm being serious.
Come on.
Because truly for years, and I'll talk about this enough, for years, I struggled with this. I struggled with this idea. Okay, I ran a lawn mowing business at the core. I ran a lawn mowing business. My business partner, frankly, should be the one credited for building the poop scooping business, turning poop into gold. I took it over 2 years ago. He basically built it up to that point. We built it together, but he was in the day to day. So I was building lawn. So how do you motivate guys mowing lawns? And I'm simplifying this, but how do you motivate guys mowing lawns, guys scooping poop? You've got to have a ginormous vision. How can you fit them into that vision? And so where I struggled in my 20s, I'm 39 now, so this is going back a little ways. Where I struggled in my 20s was, again, I'm not a job guy. I'm not a job guy. I guess that's just, and so it was hard for me to look at somebody who's getting a job and and be like, yeah, you're going to be here for 40 years in this role. Like, no, I had to figure out a way. How can I get them ownership? How can they get equity in what they're doing? Because to me, that should be your goal, is to have equity in what you're doing. And of course, that's where franchising comes in. And so forgive me, Josh, for my ADD. I kind of forgot the initial question, but I think I answered it.
You know what's crazy? Because you and I talked about this before the episode. My undiagnosed ADD actually forgot as well. So,
I'm so bad at that.
I'm so lost in your answers.
But I think we were late. I think we were late to people when we do that.
Oh, we don't. Vision and buy-in. So the means,
yeah.
How do you get people bought in? How do you
try to have an enormous vision? And going back to the faith, I remember now, going back to that faith matter, that's what I wanted to say. I until God opened my eyes to this enormous vision that I can't do without literally thousands of people. It will take thousands of people, not a couple dozen. It will take thousands of people. And so that's what I want to say to that is you've got to have a vision. And for me, that was, I feel like my vision, literally the vision that I have for my businesses, the vision that I have for my life and my legacy, that comes from God. That's God breathed. And I believe that's for everybody. I'm not special at all. That's for everybody. But you've got to have a vision that is so massive that, and people talk about this. You hear this all over social media. So this isn't, I hear this, but I absolutely believe it. You've got to have a vision that is so massive that your team can literally see their space in that. Mm. And I think entrepreneurs, especially in the spaces that I'm in, struggle with that, because you can build yourself a really good sized business and make a really good living for yourself. But for me, where it became a bigger deal was, okay, that's great. How do I get my team their goals? And so I'll say, how do I get my team members rich? And again, I'm saying rich, that could mean monetarily rich, but that could also mean spiritually rich, or whatever they want. You've got to figure out how can you get their vision to fit into your vision, or vice versa, I guess is what I'm getting at.
EJ, as a fellow believer, man, I will personally, I can attest to the fact that even for me, like what I'm doing these days, as I'm 42 years old now, what I'm doing, if you knew me 20 years ago, you would know I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing. I'm not supposed to be speaking to hundreds of people on stage. I'm not supposed to be coaching in the capacity in which I'm doing. But that is because God continues to move in and through me, because I finally said, hey, God, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to trust you, and and he's going to show me. You know, so many of us are saying, hey, show me, God, and then I'll trust you. I need you to act first, and then I'll move. But it really needs to be the opposite. Hey, because he's saying, hey, Josh, trust me, and I'll show you. And you know, for so many years, I tried to do things my way, and you know, clearly that was not the best way. And God quickly course corrected me. And so finally, I said, you know what, God, I'm gonna jump out of the boat, and I'm gonna go all in. And it's incredible the way he moves when you finally allow him to just wait. You know, we've heard that, let go, let God, and man, it's awesome. So everything you're sharing, I really believe in. I love the fact that you led with, hey, you know what, pray. First and foremost, pray. Every person in any relationship, especially professionally, deserves clarity and direction. And for some of us who have this vision, but we're not really sure where it's going to go or how we're going to get there, man, God knows. And God, he's the one who's going to help us get more clarity and direction on that vision.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, and I often say this, when I was mowing yards through my 20s, and I like I said, we started Scoop Soldiers in my, I was 26. I didn't have this clarity and a clear vision for my purpose, my legacy, until I was probably 34 years old, 32, 33, 34 years old, the last 5, 6, 7 years. I'm 39, almost 4, I'll be 40 in November. And I didn't have that clarity for the longest time. It was just constant prayer, constant growth, reading books, getting on YouTube, learning, and working through the muck, so to speak.
Sure.
It didn't come quickly, and I am not known to be a very patient person, and so that was extremely frustrating for me. But looking back, it was so clear. Yeah, it took a long time for me and that's my story. Some people get that vision and then they start and they're going. I was just making a living until I was 32, 33. Like I say, I was just trying to survive and build my own and figure my own life and my own business out and make sure that we were going to continually grow and grow and grow. So there was always that ambition, but when it didn't really fully click for the concept of a legacy business, the concept of making a difference in other people's lives as opposed to just mowing yards and just getting through that mowing season, so to speak, that didn't click. It was a long process. I'm like you look back at me 10, 15, 20 years ago, or even before, I'm severely dyslexic in the sense that I very much so struggle. I struggle with retention. My wife I usually have to have her explain the instructions to me, because if I have to read them 15 times on just about anything, because I'm just not, in fact, I'm going to write a book, and my keynote is literally not the sharpest tool. It's kind of a play on being in home services, but also I'm not the sharpest tool. I'm not the quickest learner. My retention is absolutely terrible. But if you just keep at it, I am a testament to that. If you just keep at it and you pray and if you're a believer and you pray, God will show you the way. It just, for some, it takes a little longer than others. And I'm one of those that it took a little longer in some ways.
EJ, my friend, you are a story of resilience. You're a story of grit. And for those listening, it's okay if you're thinking, hey, I have this vision. It's not entirely as big as I want it to be, and I don't really know what it's going to look like in the end. That's okay. For a lot of us, we don't act until we have confidence or motivation, or we feel fully prepared, or it's the right time. But the reality is the right time is right now. God is giving you this vision, albeit big, small, or indifferent. He's giving you this vision to start moving and to trust in him. And if you start taking action, confidence and motivation is going to follow. EJ, if I had to guess, all 3 of your businesses that you mentioned, I know you have other businesses, but all 3 that you mentioned, I would imagine that none of them are exactly how you initially envisioned them. And that's the thing. You mentioned evolution earlier. We talked about change, and we have to know that even for your vision right now that you described, years down the road, I know it's going to come into fruition, but you and I both know it's going to look a little bit different than what it currently looks like. And that's okay, because you're going to take action, motivation, confidence, all that stuff's going to follow, but you're not going to quit because you're resilient, you got grit. And so, man, props to you for all that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, when I think of even Chorby in 2019, when Chorby became Chorby, I mentioned that's really the roots of that business were Emerald Lawn and Landscaping. I actually changed the name 3 times. Chorby's its 3rd name.
Okay.
It was Emerald Lawn and Landscaping, and then it was Weed Extinguishers, because I literally, in 2016, I went in the opposite direction of where I went with Chorby, where I was like, I was only going to focus on killing the weeds in grass. Weed control, so to speak, fertilization and weed control. Think True Green. Everybody knows the name True Green. And 3 years later, I changed the name to Chorby in a complete, and by the way, that was my growth as an entrepreneur. I learned how to deal with people, and I learned how to build a team. In 2016, it was very reactionary. I was like, how can I make the most amount of money with the least amount of people? That's literally was my mindset in 2016 when we went from Emerald Lawn Care to Weed Extinguishers. In 2019, we rebranded to Chorby, because we figured out leadership. We figured out how to build a team and grew in that confidence that you're talking about. But even then, when we became Chorby, I didn't realize, because I'm not necessarily technology savvy. I am not a tech savvy person. In fact, I'm usually a slow adopter when it comes to a lot of technology. Now I realize it took me 3 years. It's been 5 years. It took me 3 years to realize that Chorby was a technology play. I didn't even know it for 3 years. I literally had hired a CFO, a fractional CFO that had a background in technology. And we were meeting one day about the vision of Chorby. He goes, EJ, this is a technology. This is the future of this is technology. It's not home services. It's not franchising, which is what I thought it was. I thought it was home services, franchising. But in fact, it's a technology platform that isn't even yet to be built yet, because again, not that quick. But it's a technology for the home service industry, for home service, for clients, that we will use the vehicle of franchising to deliver the service. It took me 3 years after naming it Chorby to even realize that.
Man, I know we can go on forever. I think for time's sake, I want to put a bow on this episode first and foremost by thanking you for sharing who you are, sharing your vision, sharing your mission, really just sharing your heart, man. I mean, you truly are one of the more genuine people that I've met. And you and I have only connected a few times, but I can truly hear your heart in who you are and what you do. And I want to acknowledge you for that, because that really
well, thank you, Josh.
Doesn't happen a lot these days. So,
thank you.
Hey, man, I do have one final question for you. Actually, maybe two. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We're just gonna wing it.
Let's do it.
I got a question though. So, my oldest son. So, my wife and I have 4 children. So sometimes we just call him number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So number two is literally it's his first week of trying to start a lawn care business. We just went and got a lawnmower, a weed eater, that blower already, and he is hungry. He is hungry to mow some lawns. What advice would you give a 12-year-old on starting a mowing business?
2 things. 1, answer your phone. Communicate. By the way, whether it's 12, he's 12, you said?
12.
That's awesome that he's 12 and looking to do that in 2024, even more so.
Yes.
Answer your phone. And what I mean by that is communicate with your clients. Do not hide from your clients. I figured that out when I was 19, and that was actually something I figured out quick enough, because a lot of people that are still aspiring for that, whether they're adults, whether they're 45 years old, or whether they're 16 years old, they haven't quite figured that part out yet. You have to communicate with your clients when your clients want to communicate with you, not when you want to communicate, when they want to communicate. Okay. And 2, do not underestimate the power of just hustling to get new work. Knocking on doors, communicating that you want to mow this yard, however you're going to do that. I did door hangers. I was not big on knocking on doors because I wasn't the greatest salesman in that context, in that way. But however you're going to figure that hustle out, do not underestimate the value of hustle. Keep going, don't stop.
Love it. Once again, grit and resilience.
Yes.
Man, EJ McCoy, so thankful for you to be on this episode. Hopefully it's not your last time on the Josh Parnell Leadership Podcast.
I'd love to be on again.
Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I'd love to thank you. I'd love to wrap it up by saying one thing, and I didn't get a chance to talk too much about the Pet Waste Millionaire T-Pig Takeover Tour that we're doing. The bus right now, we bought this 45-foot bus, as you know. We wrapped it, a mixture of Scoop Soldiers brand and Pet Waste Millionaire brand, and it's a 2-part goal. We are crisscrossing the country. I don't think we talked fully about this. I mentioned it earlier, but we're in North Carolina right now. We'll be all the way up in Seattle before the end of the year, down to Vegas, back to Texas. So we've got cross-country travels going on with the T-Pig Takeover Tour. Check us out at petwastemillionaire.com, our YouTube page, Pet Waste Millionaire. We're doing a lot of cool stuff to serve our franchisees, but to bring awareness to our brands.
Petwastemillionaire.com, also the Pet Waste Millionaire YouTube channel. How else can we get in touch with you, EJ, through social media?
Any of your major platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. What am I missing? Facebook. Oh my goodness, my biggest one. Facebook, LinkedIn, Pet Waste Millionaire, and EJ McCoy. Find me. I'm on there. My favorite, personally, I'm big on Facebook myself, but we're on all of those platforms, whatever you prefer. Check us out. We're doing a lot of cool stuff, crisscrossing the country to support our franchisees, but also to bring awareness. to what we're doing.
Yeah, and I will absolutely confirm that. I love the content you guys are putting out. I love the fact that we get to follow you and what y'all are doing, and y'all do a great job of it.
Yeah, I've got an awesome team doing all that work. All I got to do is show up and flap.
Just flap, man. Awesome. Well, thank you for tuning into the Josh Parnell Leadership Podcast. Have a great day, everyone. Don't forget to smile today. Tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. I'm Josh Parnell, reminding you to keep leading well.